if somebody loves eating, the first thing I do is I ask them, so what's the benefit you're getting out of it? And they'll say, well, it's not. Look at it. It's killing me. Look at it. Oh, I'm overweight and things. I said, I know, but you wouldn't be doing it if there was not conscious or unconscious motivations to do it. Because every decision you make is based on what you believe will give you the greatest advantage over disadvantage at any moment. So you must be getting conscious or unconscious benefits out of doing it. So I had a lady that told me one time, we were filming at Universal Studios in LA. We were filming a thing for a reality show. And she says, oh, you got to help me, Dr. Demartini. Look at me. I'm overweight. I just can't seem to stop eating. Help me, help me. I said, what's the benefit you're getting out of eating? And she says, well, there's no benefit. Look at me. Look at it's affecting my this and that. I said, stop. You're eating. You obviously have unconscious or conscious motivations to do it. I'm trying to bring unconscious conscious. What's the benefit you're getting out of eating? I said, I can't see any. I said, look again. You're not going to convince me. I'm studying human behavior for 5 decades. You aren't going to do something unless you have a motive for doing it. So what's the benefit you're getting out of it? Finally, she says to me, everybody in my family is large. If I'm not large when I'm seen with them, I feel like I don't fit in this family. They're all big. Great. What's another benefit you're getting? My sister used to bully me, and she's jealous of me, and I made a commitment that I would never be smaller than her, so she couldn't push me around. So I'm always bigger than my sister. Good. What's another benefit you got? And she starts to get it, and all of a sudden she gets a tear in the eye, and she said, I one time went on a crash diet, lost 45 pounds, and started to get a little bit of a shape. And I met a guy, and I didn't know, I'd never been with a guy before, and I thought this is the one. I thought I was in love, and we literally made love the very first time in my life, the first night we were together. And then the next morning, gone, never seen again. And 6.5 to 7 weeks later, I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant. And then I had the biggest disaster of my life. Either have the baby on somebody I don't want to ever even look at again, that felt he jilted me, or not have a baby and have to go through an abortion. And I'm a Latin descent and a Catholic descent. And either one of them, I'm going to hell in my mind. So I had to choose, and I chose to have an abortion. And it's been the most painful thing in my life. And since that day, I've never lost weight again. I would never want to be caught in that situation again. So she started crying. She says, I'm unconsciously making sure I don't ever get trapped by a guy again. Then I asked her, what's another benefit? And she said, well, every time I do have any form of lost weight, my skin sags, and I'm in front of television a lot, and my face is smooth as long as I keep weight on. But the second I don't, I start sagging, and it shows. So I got to keep weight on, or otherwise I'm saggy, and I don't like the way I look. And I try to fix it with my hair and my clothes to distract people. But the reality is, if my face sags, I don't like the way I look. So when we started looking at why she was keeping weight on, she had a motive. It was not just this disorder that was causing it. She had an unconscious motive. And we kept going, and I came up with 75. I got 75 reasons why she was keeping weight on. Now, unless she comes up with a viable alternative way of getting those same benefits without having to eat, she's going to eat. So we had to come up with viable alternative ways of getting the same benefits. How can I be with my family without having to eat? Well, I can meet with them by going to the movies with them where we're in the dark and we don't have to be eaten and be seen so much. And she came up with viable alternative ways of getting the same thing. How do you not get pushed around by your sister? Well, I can make sure that certain things are not discussed, which pushes her button. I can make sure we're meeting in settings that are public, where there's interactions. And we came up with viable alternative ways of doing it. Then we stacked the viable alternative ways up on her value list by stacking up the benefits of doing that. Then we stacked the drawbacks of doing the original one, eating, in order to calm that down. Then we took the wound out of the issue about the abortion and the boyfriend. We went back and did the Demartini Method and cleared the wounds that she had on that. And not only did she lose weight slowly but surely, to her surprise, the saggingness did not become as extreme as she imagined. She was still young enough to have elastin and fibrous material that would actually bring that back down. But she thought it was going to be worse than it was. But she was able to lose weight because she now didn't have the same motives for it. So when somebody is saying, I'm not working out and I'm gaining weight and I'm overeating, I first identify what is the unconscious motives. Because if they don't find that and come up with a viable alternative way of doing it, they're going to keep doing that. And when they do, there's usually deep ahas of why they push themselves into this behavior. Maybe it's a way of keeping themselves. I know one that
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Unlocked from Within. Today, we have Dr. John Demartini back on the show again. If you haven't already listened to our first episode we did with him a couple years ago, it is called How to Remove Negative Thoughts and Emotions. So I'd highly recommend checking it out after this episode. Today, we're going to learn a little bit more about Dr. John Demartini. And for anyone out there that hasn't listened to Dr. John Demartini before, he is a world-leading human human behavior specialist, researcher, best-selling author, educator, and founder of the Demartini Method, a revolutionary tool in modern psychology. He has authored 43 books, translated into 40 languages, and presented his insights alongside some of the world's most influential people, including Sir Richard Branson and Deepak Chopra. Harnessing almost 5 decades of research across multiple disciplines, Dr. Demartini shares his life, business, financial, relationship, and leadership empowerment strategies with people all over the globe, enabling them to transform their lives according to their highest values. So please, let's welcome Dr. John Demartini on the show. Hey, John, welcome to Unlocked from Within again.
Thank you for having me back.
It's such an honor to have you back on. The last episode was well received. It's funny, we're coming up to, it'll be 2 years in August since the first interview we did. So again, it's such an honor to have you back on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share ideas and get to have a dialogue again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, John. A lot of my business clients, my business coaching clients, mindset coach clients, I always forward on that episode with you, because if they haven't heard anything about you, then I get them to watch or listen to that episode, and then encourage them to go on and do your determining your values, determining your values, and as I said in the first episode, you're probably not going to remember, but I still believe The Values Factor is one of my top 10 all-time books.
Yeah, I just found out just about an hour and a half ago that the San Francisco Opera Center has now, everybody that works in that organization now is hired by values, managed by values, determined values. It's just part of their system. And that keeps happening all over the world now. More companies and industries are now using it. So I'm very pleased with that we made something that was practical that people could use. It's very inspiring to watch.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see the impact you're having around the world over so many years, and seeing that ripple effect, the momentum it's gaining and gaining for future generations as well. So it's quite remarkable.
Well, that's, if you stay with something, long enough, everybody else dives out and you end up at the top. You just got to stay with it.
Yeah, the power of discipline and persistence.
Well, this is my 52nd year of teaching, so I'm still going.
So and for the audience, how old are you now, John? Or how young are you, John? I should say.
Well, 70s is the new 20s. So I'm hitting 70 this year, just in a few months.
Wow, you look like you're about 25, 30 years younger. So there's got to be something there that's you're doing right that everyone can try and take on board.
I can't complain. I do what I love every day, and I eat well, and I just had some vegetable juice and some soup and a multi-grain roll and a couple grapes, and I drink water, and I got my bottle of water, and I don't live to eat, I eat to live, because I have performances every day, and I love doing what I'm doing. So you get to do what you love, and I delegate everything else away. So I don't do anything except what I love doing. And people don't get that. They go, well, how can you do that? I said, you just simply do it. You delegate everything that you're not inspired to do and stick to the things you're inspired to do, and your life changes.
Powerful, very powerful. And then I guess there's a topic I'd like to delve into that I guess I'm seeing a lot of conversations around. A few people have touched on it, and I guess I would like to hear your view on it. I'm not sure if you've heard this. There's this quote, I guess it's a Two Wolves quote. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's an old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me. He said to the boy, "It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." And he continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. And the same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too, he says. And the grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? And the old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. And so I'd love to know your take on that.
Well, 40 years ago, I went to an Oxford English dictionary, the largest dictionary I could find. And I found every human behavioral trait that I could find in the dictionary. And I found 4,628 of them to be exact. And I underlined each of the behavioral traits that I found: kind and cruel and nice and mean and positive and negative and happy, sad and inconsiderate, honest, dishonest, everything. And then I went out and out to the far edge of the paper. I wrote down the name of the individual who I imagined was the most extreme exemplifier of that behavior. And I wrote their name out there. And then I looked inside myself with reflection, self-inspection. And where and when do I display and demonstrate that behavior? Where do I do it? When do I do it? Who do I demonstrate it to? And who's perceived me that way? And I identified all 4,628 traits inside of me to the degree that I saw in other people. And I learned a lesson about reflective awareness, that I'm all the above. I'm not a nice person. I'm not a mean person. Those are personas. I'm an individual with the capacity to display both behaviors. And if you support my values, I can be nice as a pussycat. If you change my values, I can be challenging my values. I can be mean as a tiger. And then I realized that I had both. I was really honest with myself. I had different moments when I played out both sides. And then I looked at the side that I didn't like typically and looked at how it served. And the one that I liked, I realized there were flip sides to that. There were downsides to that. So I finally realized that a human being, if they're going to master their life, it's going to be futile to try to get rid of half of themselves. It's better to embrace all of themselves. So I don't try to get rid of any part of myself. I honor it all. And I help people realize that you're going to play every one of those roles. You're going to be the wolf and the other wolf. You're going to have both sides at different times, and they're both going to be needed in your journey. Now, if you stay stuck on one side or the other, you'll probably end up having a repression and eventually an explosion of the other side. So those two sides are not there to get rid of one half of it and only be one side. Those two sides are needed in your journey, and that's why they're there. There's a thing called a moral licensing effect. The second you get proud and cocky, you automatically sit and give yourself permission to do something you're ashamed and upset about. And that's why, so if a person goes out and works out and they get really toned or whatever, and they're really proud of how they worked out, they give themselves permission to eat chocolate and more wine and more food that night. And if they overeat and they get themselves motivated to go out and work out the next day. So these are homeostatic internal negative feedback loops inside the brain to make sure that you have both. And the synthesis of that is the authentic you. The authentic you is the one that has the synthesis of those two. The high and low self-esteems, if you're merged together simultaneously, you get true self-worth. The self-righteous and self-conscious persona, if you merge them together and synthesize and homogenate them, you get your authentic self. So I'm not one-sided. I found it futile. In Buddhism, the Buddha says the desire to seek that which is unavailable and to desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering. And many people are trying to get rid of half themselves and only be one-sided. I gave that up 40 years ago. And I'm grateful because I've been more inspired and know that there's times when I need to be firm and tough and aggressive, and other times I need to be passive and receptive, and all the above work. Castiglione said in his book on One and Many, said, and Machiavelli said it in The Prince, that I'm both the saint and the sinner, the hero and the villain, and everything in between. And all of them are needed in my journey.
Powerful, powerful. And like, what's the difference then, like when you know, like between what you've just said and like that inner voice, the inner self-talk, like say, for example, I guess I'll simplify it down. I might wake up and every morning I try to go for a jog, obviously go do a meditation, breath work, and then go do some kind of physical exercise. But that voice that comes up to say, oh, it doesn't look that great outside. It's like talking me out of going for a jog. And then while I summon up to go for a jog and I'm jogging and I'm enjoying it, I've put on a podcast I really enjoy listening to or an audio book. It will come back and go, okay, I think you've done enough. Maybe we'll just stop at the next corner. And then I'll be like, who is that? I'm going to keep running when I hear that. And I've started training myself to do that. And I feel a lot better when I don't listen to it.
Well, anytime you compare yourself to other people, and Wilhelm Wundt, the father of experimental psychology in 1896, mentioned this in his law of contrast. So anytime you compare yourself to another individual and admire something about them and put them on a pedestal and think, well, they're more intelligent than me, or they're more business savvy than me, or they're more wealthy than me, or they're more financially stable, or more stable in relationship, or more socially connected, or more physically attractive or fit, or more spiritually aware. Anytime you compare yourself to other people and put them on a pedestal, you'll minimize yourself by the law of contrast. You'll inject some of their values into your life, and then you'll envy them and try to imitate them and inject those values and try to live in their values. You'll even think that the goals you're setting are yours when they're actually injected values from other people. Freud warned against this. He called it the superego. And when you do, you'll then compare your actions to those expectations, and then you'll self-depreciate. Now, what has been called limited beliefs in the kind of self-help market are nothing but you with your authentic values now in competition with the injected values of the people you put on pedestals. And the moment you do, you have this kind of masochistic expectation to try to go and say, well, I need to be doing that. I should be doing that. I ought to be doing that. I'm supposed to be doing that. I must do that. I need to do that. I got to do that. Anytime you have internal imperative language coming from internalizations of other people's values, you're going to feel self-sabotage. You're going to feel self-depreciated. You're going to wonder why you can't stay focused. You're going to have that inner voice whispering, and it ain't you. It's I should be doing this by some outside authority. The real you spontaneously is inspired to act. The real me loves teaching. The real me loves learning. The real me is dedicated to that. I don't ever have an internal voice whispering to me when I'm doing that. But if I try to do something that's not me, and I have a fantasy of living in somebody else's values, I'm designed automatically to self-depreciate because it's not authentic. And I'm going to go in there, and every time I'm now comparing what I think I should do to what I'm doing, and then I'm going to judge myself. And I think I make mistakes when I compare myself to others. The key is not to compare yourself to other people, but to compare your actions to your own highest values. What's truly most important to you that your life demonstrates that you spontaneously act on, that you love doing, that nobody has to remind you to do. Now, when I stick to that and I delegate everything else away, and I don't compare myself to others, I don't have that negative self-talk. I don't have that self-depreciation. I don't have that, I should be doing this. I don't have this lack of drive, because the real you is inspired to take action on the thing that's important to you. But prioritizing your day and making sure you stick to the things that are really authentically you is the difference between all that noise in the brain and all that internal conflict and just being clear and being able to say thank, but no thank you to those distractions. And to realize the people you've got above you aren't people above you. They're facades that you've made out of your own imagination about who they are. If you actually got to meet them and live with them for a few weeks or months, you'd find out they're just human beings. But you've fabricated a fantasy about who they are, and you minimize yourself in a comparison. So don't put people on pedestals. Don't put people in pits. Put them in your heart. Find out whatever you see in them. Where do you have your own version of it? Honor your form. Stick to your priorities, and the noise and all that internal dialogue go away. And realize that maybe you're not interested. I don't work out every day. I don't feel guilty about it. I have the workout that I love doing that I'm consistent on, and I do it spontaneously. If I had to feel like I should be doing this every day and I ought to be doing this and I'm supposed to do this because somebody with a different set of values said I should, I'm going to be sitting there shoulding myself all day long and not do what is really meaningful to me. So prioritize your life according to what you really value, what your life really demonstrates is truly meaningful, and don't try to live envying other people and imitating other people. As Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. Give yourself permission to be you. The magnificence of who you are, as you are, is far greater than any fantasies you'll impose on yourself by comparison.
Powerful, powerful. And so, like, if someone was like in that situation where, you know, thinking about the jogging or going exercising, and they, you know, they're overweight or they feel like they could be more healthier, what would you suggest in that instance? Would it be stacking, you know, going in and stacking like 200 benefits and balancing it out so it's not a should, it's just an inspired spontaneous action of going and doing it?
Yes. I would if somebody loves eating, the first thing I do is I ask them, so what's the benefit you're getting out of it? And they'll say, well, it's not. Look at it, it's killing me. Look at it. I'm overweight and things. I said, I know, but you wouldn't be doing it if there was not conscious or unconscious motivations to do it. Because every decision you make is based on what you believe will give you the greatest advantage over disadvantage at any moment. So you must be getting conscious or unconscious benefits out of doing it. So I had a lady that told me one time, we were filming at Universal Studios in LA, we were filming a thing for a reality show. And she says, oh, you got to help me, Dr. Demartini. Look at me, I'm overweight. I just can't seem to stop eating. Help me, help me. I said, what's the benefit you're getting out of eating? And she says, well, there's no benefit. Look at me, look at, it's affecting my this and that. I said, stop. You're eating. You obviously have unconscious or conscious motivations to do it. I'm trying to bring unconscious conscious. What's the benefit you're getting out of eating? I said, I can't see any. I said, look again. You're not going to convince me. I'm studying human behavior for 5 decades. You aren't going to do something unless you have a motive for doing it. So what's the benefit you're getting out of it? Finally, she says to me, everybody in my family is large. If I'm not large when I'm seen with them, I feel like I don't fit in this family. They're all big. Great. What's another benefit you're getting? My sister used to bully me, and she's jealous of me. And I made a commitment that I would never be smaller than her, so she couldn't push me around. So I'm always bigger than my sister. Good. What's another benefit you got? And she starts to get it, and all of a sudden she gets a tear in the eye, and she said, I one time went on a crash diet, lost 45 pounds, and started to get a little bit of a shape. And I met a guy, and I didn't know, I'd never been with a guy before, and I thought this is the one. I thought I was in love, and we literally made love the very first time in my life, the first night we were together. And then the next morning, gone, never seen again. And 6.5 to 7 weeks later, I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant. And then I had the biggest disaster of my life. Either have the baby on somebody I don't want to ever even look at again, that felt he jilted me, or not have a baby and have to go through an abortion. And I'm a Latin descent and a Catholic descent, and either one of them, I'm going to hell in my mind. So I had to choose, and I chose to have an abortion. And it's been the most painful thing in my life. And since that day, I've never lost weight again. I would never want to be caught in that situation again. So she started crying. She says, I'm unconsciously making sure I don't ever get trapped by a guy again. Then I asked her, what's another benefit? And she said, well, every time I do have any form of lost weight, my skin sags, and I'm in front of television a lot, and my face is smooth as long as I keep weight on. But the second I don't, I start sagging, and it shows. So I got to keep weight on, or otherwise I'm saggy, and I don't like the way I look. And I try to fix it with my hair and my clothes to distract people. But the reality is, if my face sags, I don't like the way I look. So when we started looking at why she was keeping weight on, she had a motive. It was not just this disorder that was causing it. She had an unconscious motive. And we kept going, and I came up with 75. I got 75 reasons why she was keeping weight on. Now, unless she comes up with a viable alternative way of getting those same benefits without having to eat, she's going to eat. So we had to come up with viable alternative ways of getting the same benefits. How can I be with my family without having to eat? Well, I can meet with them by going to the movies with them where we're in the dark and we don't have to be eaten and be seen so much. And she came up with viable alternative ways of getting the same thing. How do you not get pushed around by your sister? Well, I can make sure that certain things are not discussed, which pushes her button. I can make sure we're meeting in settings that are public, where there's interactions. And we came up with viable alternative ways of doing it. Then we stacked the viable alternative ways up on her value list by stacking up the benefits of doing that. Then we stacked the drawbacks of doing the original one, eating, in order to calm that down. Then we took the wound out of the issue about the abortion and the boyfriend. We went back and did the Demartini Method and cleared the wounds that she had on that. And not only did she lose weight slowly but surely, to her surprise, the saggingness did not become as extreme as she imagined. She was still young enough to have elastin and fibrous material that would actually bring that back down, but she thought it was going to be worse than it was. But she was able to lose weight because she now didn't have the same motives for it. So when somebody is saying, I'm not working out and I'm gaining weight and I'm overeating, I first identify what is the unconscious motives. Because if they don't find that and come up with a viable alternative way of doing it, they're going to keep doing that. And when they do, there's usually deep ahas of why they push themselves into this behavior. Maybe it's a way of keeping themselves. I know a woman that she is a lawyer, and she was a very attractive girl, and she finished law school, and she started to go work for a firm. And every time she get a client, most of them were men. When she get a client, the women, the wives or girlfriends would make sure that they canceled it because she was too attractive. She finally realized that she was losing business because the wives and the girlfriends were saying, I don't want you having that lawyer. So she ended up cutting her hair, putting on glasses, gaining weight, dressing like a male, and got her clients together. She was able to keep herself having clients. So we sat down and we worked on this. We found out what the motives were. We came up with alternative ways of getting her not to be rejected by the women. So we made it where every time she picked up a guy client, all the wives and girlfriends had to be in the meeting. And then she'd befriend all the girlfriends and the things to make sure that they would tell the guy to make sure to follow through, because the women tell the men what to do. And then in the process of doing it, she was able to get her hair grow out again, put on some contacts, lose the weight, dress nicely again, and was not threatening to these women. So she found out her motive why she was doing it. Had another woman that almost had an affair. Her husband was working really hard. She had 3 kids. She felt like she was trapped. And all of a sudden her husband's too busy and she's feeling like, she's not getting the affection she wants. She ends up meeting this other guy, starts having affection, and then all of a sudden almost goes through with an affair. And then she realized that as she was about to go through the affair, she started to imagine what it would be like if all of a sudden her kids found out, and she stopped it and she put on weight and she frumped herself out to make sure she wasn't vulnerable for affairs. And that way she didn't feel like she was the one that was starting to get cocky and I deserve better. She calmed herself down. It was a strategy to keep weight on, to keep her marriage together, to keep her children together. That was her strategy. So I find that there's unconscious motives driving these behaviors. I want to find out what they are, find out a viable alternative ways of getting those same benefits, and then stack up the drawbacks of the behavior so they now have a Skinner operant conditioning association change the motive for doing it.
Profound. And for I guess someone that's listening, whether it's a female or a male, I guess, yeah, probably be more so female. Well, yeah, it could be either or, but you probably see it more with females. Like a woman that might be a little bit overweight, and it could be her reason for being overweight is she doesn't like the attention, the positive attention of like guys whistling or constantly being hit on or whatever, flirting. So yeah, so what, like, if you're going through that sequence, how would you collapse that? Like, I know you'd be using the same process, but what type of questions would you be asking?
I would be asking, how can you use that to your advantage? If a guy does it, what's the response? You can have sarcastic responses. You can have thankful responses. You can have, I can't wait to tell my lesbian girlfriend what you said. That means a lot to me. There's lots of ways you can respond to that and turn it into your advantage. See, most people do is want to blame with false attribution biases and put projections of false causalities on things out there. And they don't realize that they have control over perception, decisions, and actions in their life. So if they go out and take whatever the event is, no matter what happens out there, and finds out how they can spin it and use it to their advantage, then they're not run from the external world. So if somebody's going, wow, hot baby like that, You could sit there and be upset about it. You could be sitting there going, oh, how disgusting those men are, and you could be upset and angry, or you could say, okay, they're guys. They like beauty. They're acknowledging my beauty. Thank you. But at the same time, I'm not interested. But thank you. There's many ways of handling that. And you might as well come up with a variety of ways of handling situations that you're upset about and use it to your advantage. I had a woman who is a client who was doing train manufacturing, manufacturing trains in that business. And all of a sudden, Russian, French, Chinese, and South African organizations wanted to meet with her to buy out part of her company. It was quite interesting. And she knew that these were all male macho guys. All of them were male macho guys, is where they were coming from. So when she's going into negotiation, they gave her an opportunity, an offer. It was way lower than she wanted, way lower. So she decided to use her feminine power. So she got this black outfit on, made sure her breasts were showing, got some bling on, lipstick, hair. She made herself as sexy as she possibly could. They did is she came into the room to negotiate, and all these men are sitting there. And then unexpectedly, she walks in looking hot, which distracts and gets the amygdala going on the guys. And she just played this to the teams. And she says, she looks at the what the offer is, and she just shakes her head and she goes, well, boys, if you're going to step up and do business with me, you're going to have to be real men. And you're going to have to come up with a real man's offer, because this is child's play. And I don't do business with children. And she just basically castrated him. And the male ego says, no, I'm not going to do that. They liked her beauty and everything else. She walked out and just strutted it as she walked out. $1.5 billion increase to the negotiation.
Wow.
1.5 billion. Now, she was using her talent to her advantage. So she could sit there. I can't believe that these guys are just eyeing me or whatever. You could be a victim of your history or a master of your destiny. Wise people take whatever happens to them and turn it into opportunities. And they realize it's not what happens out there, it's their perception of what happens. And they can change the perception, change the decision, and change the actions relative to it, and use every one of those situations as an advantage. So the lady that was basically sitting there going, oh, I'm frumping my hair, I'm making myself not attractive so I don't lose clients, turn it around and then put her beauty back in there and got clients. And then engage in the girls and got the girls working for her. And then the girls talked socializing and then picked up new business from it. So she turned it into an opportunity instead of making herself a victim of history. I tell the people there, you can sit there and run your story all day long about how this is keeping you this way and stopping you from doing that. None of that's real. It's simply your perception. You can make a change in perception, decision, action, and turn whatever is happening into an opportunity. I love helping people do that. That's because that way they're resourceful. Because you can't change the outer world, you can change your perception of the outer world.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and that's profound, very profound to turn it around like that and change. Yeah, shifting, being able to shift your perspective, and it's like I know I delved into it when I went through the breakthrough experience. I was able to, the words I would say is it was like freeing in one aspect of my life to be able to reshape it, see it from a different perspectives, rather than a negative, seeing it as a way it was serving me and a positive. Was definitely a freeing feeling. Yeah.
I had a gentleman just this weekend in the breakthrough experience, a young guy, and he was really angry at his father, right? And I asked, so what the hell did the father do? And I thought it seemed kind of simple and trivial. It wasn't really a major thing, but in his mind, it was just a deal breaker, right? I don't want to talk to my father. I don't want to look at him or anything else. And I asked him a question nobody's asked him. Everybody's, they just assume that what this man does is bad, and then you're a victim of that. And that is a real disempowered perception of life. And I said, so whatever that happened that your father did, let's identify what he did. And he narrowed it down. I said, so how'd that benefit you? Well, it didn't. I said, I didn't ask that question. I asked, how did it benefit you? Because if you don't see the benefit of it, you're going to be a victim all your life. How did it benefit you? I don't know. well, you didn't look. You told me I don't know in the 1.5 seconds after I asked. So you didn't really try to look. Let's actually try to look and look at how it helped you. And he stopped and he goes, huh, I would be living in a small town and not move to the big city and would not have the opportunities I do in my career path if my father hadn't been that way that day. I said, do you love what you do today? He goes, I do. I said, did you see that your father played a role in that? He said, I never saw that till just now. I said, now, if he would have been the way you hoped he would have been, at that moment, he did what he did. And he was to play out the opposite role, the fantasy you had. What would be the drawback? I'd be living in the small town. I would never have moved. And I can't even imagine that. And then I said, do you have any brothers and sisters? He said, I do. Did your brother get treated the way you did? He goes, I don't think so. I said, did your brother still stay in a small town and playing that thing? And he goes, yeah, he's playing a real small game. I said, so did your father actually catalyze you to play a bigger game in life? And he goes, yeah. And I said, so who at that moment when your father was being tough on you and everything else, who was the overprotector and the one that was supporting you too much? Because you never get an aggressive person unless you got an overprotector and supporter to balance it, because nature's always got a pair of opposites. Who was that? He says, definitely my mom. I said, can you see that support was making you become more juvenilely dependent? And he goes, wow. I'm running my own business and I'm still taking care of my mom. I'm playing out the role like my dad because I'm buying into the idea that he's being assertive and too aggressive. And so I'm sitting to rescue my mom. And the moment I do, the more aggressive he becomes. He said, man, this is eye-opening. I said, so your mom was playing the pair of opposites with your dad. One was protective, one was aggressive, support and challenge. Maximum growth and development occurs at the border of support and challenge. And so if you get addicted to support, you get more challenge coming at you to break your addiction because you stay juvenilely dependent with the support and become precociously independent with the challenge. You became precociously independent when on your own because of your father's side, and here you are still dependent with your mom, playing still a little boy with your mom. And he goes, whoa, what a reframing of my perspective on this thing. My mom is actually keeping me stuck. My dad set me free. And I said, exactly. The over supporters make you juvenilely dependent. And the challengers make you precociously independent. Wow, I just leveled the playing field. I can see now the benefits and drawbacks to my mom, and I can see the benefits and drawbacks to my dad. And then he started to have tears in his eyes, and he said, I really all of a sudden feel like I appreciate my dad. I said, now we're making progress. You had a fantasy about how your dad was supposed to be because you wanted your dad to be like your mom. But if you had done that, you'd have stayed in a small town and you've been babied by your mommy and daddy and wouldn't have any ambition or drive or achievements like you have today. He said, that's definitely true. I said, so thank your dad for being who he is. Because sometimes nature works in mysterious ways to help you become magnificent. And we don't see it because we compare our current reality to fantasies about how life's supposed to be. That's not even real. We get addicted to a fantasy of a one-sided world instead of embracing the two sides of life and appreciating bye-bye. That's why I tell people I'm not a nice person or a mean person. I play whatever role is needed at the time to help fulfill my mission. And if you're not willing to do that, I mean, if you look at in America, we got a crazy guy, Donald, right? He's a hero and a villain. Some people see him as a hero, saving the world, and other people see him as a villain, destroying the world. If you can't honor both sides of yourself, you can't be yourself. That's the big lesson in life. So that you need to honor both sides of yourself that way, and need to honor both sides of life that way. Because life's going to give you support and challenge, and kind and cruel, and nice and mean, and positive and negative, and all the pairs of opposites of life. It's like a yin-yang symbol. It's always going to have both. And if you're thinking you're going to get one side without the other, or expecting yourself to be one side without the other, expect others to be one side without the others, or the people are supposed to live in your values and you're more important than them, you're going to have a lot of challenges by life because life's not going to match your fantasy.
Yeah, it's something I've been reflecting on a little bit, well, quite a lot, and like with my own stuff with one of my businesses, the skiing snowboarding brand, NFPD Snow brand, and I was actually watching your interview of your latest interview on London Real with Brian Rose, and you were talking about a story on there, which I didn't know was gonna, didn't know I was gonna get a massive aha. And this is the beauty, I feel, of the value of podcasts or audio or something video. Like, even if it's free, you can still have these massive breakthroughs if you just be open-minded. And you talked about a story on there about a business owner that was on a plane and he was crashing. He ended up crashing twice on a plane. Can you talk about that story? And then obviously I wanted to ask you a question about that.
Yeah. Well, I got contacted by a gentleman who is from Los Angeles. Never met him before, didn't know who he was. They contacted and said, "I've been referred to you. I'd like to fly into Houston and have a consult with you." So he spent the morning with me in my office. And a stout guy, not giant, but just, like he's worked out. But he said, I've got injuries from a plane crash, jet crash. I said, all right. He says, and I'm trying to recover and everything else, and I would like your input. And I asked him, I said, okay, go to the moment when you were crashing, when you found out about the crash, when you first found out, oh crap, we're going down. He said, yeah. I said, I'll be willing to bet at that exact moment you were elated, cocky, manic, proud, exuberant, invincible, and believing yourself to be super powerful. And he goes, wow, what a weird question to throw at me. I said, at that exact moment when this engine blew, what were you doing? And he said, we were popping open champagne and we were spraying it on each other and going, whew. We just closed a $43 million deal. I had $11 million that day in my pocket from one deal. And he said, and I yelled out to the pilot because the door in the front of the jet was open, going into the front. I said, and take it to the limit, Mac. So the guy took the engine full blast and an engine blew and they crashed. They survived and they landed in, strange, rocky manner with only one engine, but they crashed and he was injured and thrown all over the place. And it was interesting because he said, so you think that had something to do with the plane crash? I said, yes. Anytime you go way above equilibrium and go into extreme degrees of pride, invincibility, manic, cocky, invincible state, you attract tragedies to bring you back down. If you go moderately up, you attract criticism to bring you down. A little bit less up, you get humbling circumstances to bring you down. And if you're just slightly up, you get distractions to bring you down. And all those are is progressively more intense feedback from society and from the world out there to bring you back into authenticity. Because when you're puffed up in pride, that means you're too proud to admit what you see in other people inside you, and you're actually not yourself. And so nature brings you back to being authentic in yourself. The same thing in reverse. If you minimize yourself way down, people lift you up with comedy. They try to praise and support you. They try to get you back into more pride-building circumstances and focused high-priority things to get you back in equilibrium. Nature has a way of giving you feedback to try to get you to authenticity, where you have sustainable, fair exchange with people, where you maximize your potential. So I asked him, I said, can you see now that at that moment that was going on? He said, I was doing that, but I'm still having a hard time referencing that could make a plane crash. I said, you said you've been in 2 plane crashes. Let's go back to the other one. I said, you there? Now go to the moment when all of a sudden you found out that was about to go down too. And he smiled and he goes, we're doing the same friggin' thing. We just closed a big deal. We were manic. We thought we were invincible. We thought we were gods basically controlling the universe. We thought we were bigger than we really were. And we got humbled. And we were popping champagne again. He says, 2 in a row, I got the message. So that guy got the lesson. Now, the symptom in his body is governed by the autonomic nervous system on pain thresholds and the associations we make in our life about how it is. If we compare our painful situation to a fantasy about how our life should be, it's more painful. If we find out the benefits of what happened and what it's trying to teach us on how to be authentic, the pain threshold's down. So just when we finished this exercise, his pains went from about 9s to 3s. Now, he came back to the breakthrough experience. He came to the breakthrough experience in Los Angeles about a year ago. Not quite, no. A year and 5 months ago, 6 months ago. And I didn't even recognize him. I forgot what he looked like because he hadn't been in my office. And then I was telling the story, and there he was. And he says, John, can I just finish out the story? And I said, it's you. I said, yeah, it's me. I'm here at your breakthrough experience. He says, I thought I'd got a lesson, but I got another little lesson and another traffic injury. And I stopped this time and reflected. And damn if I wasn't sitting in a cocky mode right when this thing happened. And I really now understand what you're saying. We're not here to be proud. We're here to be loved. We're not here to be cocky and superior to somebody. We're here to learn how to communicate effectively and help other people get what they want by giving, and we get what we want that way. He says, I got my lesson. It took me three strikes before I got my lesson. But you succeed with those first two. But I started to kind of let that fade. I started to heal. I started thinking, oh, now I'm starting to get powerful again. And the same dang thing happened again and humbled me. So now I realize to appreciate my staff, to appreciate my clients, to appreciate what's going on, to appreciate what I can learn, appreciate my family. It's forcing me to learn how to appreciate what's going on and not get cocky. Even Jeff Bezos, I'll give an example of Bezos in business. Jeff was, he studied Sony and he studied customer-centric ideas and went out and built Amazon. And he did a magnificent job of being customer-centric. I mean, he built something that no one's ever built like that. And he was really customer-centric and built a massive business sooner or later. For years, he didn't make any money, but eventually caught up and he started making big money. And then all of a sudden, he wasn't giving the same centricity to the employees. The numbers were growing and massive numbers of employees, wasn't appreciating them. So they started revolting and said, we're not getting the best environment, we're not getting the best pay, et cetera. They gathered together and created a Teamsters union to try to go against him, to try to teach him a lesson, because that's now the symptom to let you know you're not being fair with those people. So he had to renegotiate with those people. He got the negotiation done. Now he's customer-centric and employee-centric. He's now in fair exchange with the customers and fair exchange with the employees, giving people something that's a win-win. But now the stockholders are now going, well, wait a minute, now our profit margins are a little less because he's keeping it. So then what he did is he lessened what was going to him in the net and put a little bit more back into the stocks for the people. Now he's got customer-centric, employee-centric, stockholder-centric. Now, the moment he did that, each time he did that and got those centered, the business went up. Each time he got up there. So nature's providing feedback with symptomatology in businesses and in our physiology and in our sociology to try to get us back into authenticity where we're considering other people equally to ourselves and not being superior or inferior. If we go inferior, we sacrifice our profits. If we go superior, we don't make a profit. But if we actually go into fair exchange, you maximize sustainable fair exchange, which maximizes the overall growth of a business. So nature's bringing feedback at all times, just like this gentleman, he was getting feedback, giving feedback to help people be authentic. Authenticity and integrity within ourselves is the most powerful position to be in if we want to have a lasting relationship with life and in business.
Powerful. Yeah, look, and the aha moment when you told that story, I stopped and reflected with my business. So with the NFPD Snow Brand, it was we started it full time, going 2017, but went into it full time 2018, and made a lot of sacrifices, and I would say it was a struggle. 2018, 2019, and then 2020 comes along, and the first COVID hits, and the first 3 weeks were everyone else around the world, we'll just put everything on pause and see what's going on. And then for whatever reason, I just pulled the trigger and said, no, I'm going to go at it, have a crack, advertising, full production, everything. Let's go. And we had our blowout year, our breakout year. And I was like, not to anyone else, was like, yes, felt like like it's finally our breakout year. But internally, like I was like, yes, it's finally happened. We're finally making positive momentum. And reflecting on that story about, when you questioned that guy on the plane just before he crashed, like, did you feel invincible? And to myself at that moment, not to anyone else, not showboating or anyone else, but I was like, I said to myself, we got through COVID. If we can get through COVID, we can get through anything. I said that to myself. I believed that. And we ended up having our first child the following year because I was like, oh, well, we can't go anywhere. The business is finally going well. I think, yeah, it's a good time to prepare and plan. And then the following year, February 2021, February 2021, most of our advertising, most of our sales were coming through Facebook, Instagram advertising. And the thing that pretty much nearly wiped us out and was Apple's security system. And we basically nearly went bankrupt. So we went from our best year of sales ever to our worst years of sales. And it was, it brought me to my knees emotionally, physically, and just like, wow. And it wasn't until I heard that story of that gentleman that you talked about, of the guy, that I ever thought about that question.
Well, I learned a long time ago when I was in professional practice, some days I'd have a really big day, saw a lot of patients, made quite a bit of money, and walked, like a rooster or something, puffed up chest. I am somebody. I'm important, And then I would go home, and sometimes people would try to cut me off on the street, or some weird stuff would happen when I'm driving home. Those days I'd just castrate me. And I'm like, well, what? The king is home, man. You're supposed to bow down to the king here. But she was doing what it took to bring me down from my pride, because I was arrogant, thinking I'm important and this and that. So she did her job. Now, at the time, I thought, oh, that's a toxic relationship, But really what it was is she was making me, who was up here, come back down here to make sure I'm really present with my family and present with everybody. Then I noticed if I had a really down day, and I thought, whoa, what a day, I made it through it. Then I noticed she'd lift me up and massage my shoulders and was lifting me up. And I thought, what the hell is this? When I'm up, she brings me down. When I'm down, she's lifting me up. So I didn't experiment. I realized that the world on the outside is going to bring you into your authenticity if you don't do it on the inside. So I decided, and I put together about 35 questions. I still have them on my computer today. 35 questions. And when I'm having a big day and I'm seeing lots of patients making income and this and that, people are praising me. What names did I forget today? What staff member did I thank? What procedure did I overlook? What birth date or anniversary date did I not acknowledge? What paperwork did I not complete? I asked 35 questions and humbled myself before I went home. And I kept doing that until I was authentic. And authenticity is confirmed with a tear of gratitude for the opportunity to be of service. And all of a sudden I'm doing that. I'm humbling myself relative to my staff, my patients, my kids, my family, and everything else. And I get it back in equilibrium. And I did that until I got a tear of gratitude for the opportunity to be of service that day. And I did that as the sun is setting in my office in Houston. I had a 52nd floor office there. And when I went home, my wife was present. She wasn't lifting me up. She wasn't pulling me down. She was just present with me. And I thought, is that really possible, that me changing my perspective is impacting her non-locally, like a quantum effect? So then what I did is I had a down day, and I asked the reverse questions. Who did I thank today? What did I remember? And I governed myself up. See, we have an executive center, the medial prefrontal cortex, which sends nerve fibers down into the amygdala, which is the emotional center, desire center. and it calms down and dampens the emotional vicissitudes and volatilities and instabilities of that amygdala. And so when I do that exercise and I ask questions that are counterbalancing what my perceptions are and neutralizing, I'm governing myself. So when I had a down day and I lift myself up, I wouldn't stop until I got a tear of gratitude. When I'm able to be thankful for my staff, thankful for my patients, thankful for myself, thank you for my wife, thank you for my kids, thankful for all the people that are involved in the company. When I'm there, I come home, I've got a loving wife waiting for me. And I kept that, and I still have to this day that on my computer. I still have those questions. And I realize that one who can govern themselves doesn't need to be governed by the world around them. But one who cannot govern themselves and allows themselves manic depressive swings are going to be governed from the world on the outside. Their physiology is going to create symptoms. Their psychology is going to whisper intuitional messages. Their sociology is going to give them support or challenge to get them back in equilibrium, or tragedy and comedy is going to come to make sure that they brought back to equilibrium. And when I realized that, I was grateful for the automatic feedback system and homeostatic feedback system that life has to offer to help people be authentic and maximize their potential.
Fascinating. And like, so, like, I was just thinking about it then. Like, I had many years ago, I used to sell commercial industrial real estate. And it was a very similar, like, I'm just thinking about it now, it's unfolding. It felt like a very similar journey. Like, it was like a 2-3 years of learning the trade and really not getting anywhere, not making any sales. And then I made this big sale, sold a commercial property, industrial property for like $2 million. And the fee structure was quite high. It was like fully commission based. So like it was 90% commission, 10% went to head office. So it was the biggest amount of money I've ever made in one transaction. It was $60,000. And basically most of it just went to paying off the amount of debts I built up while on that journey. But I went out to go celebrate it with my wife. And I literally going in to the car park to celebrate the very thing, I ended up scratching the side of the car. And it was a weird thing. Like, it was like I've gone into the car park, done it 1,000 times for whatever reason. I've scratched it, and then I've gotten out, and then that's just completely brought me back down.
That's exactly what's happening. We're not here to get cocky. We're not here to be high. We're not here to be proud. We're not here to be superior. We're here to be ourselves. And anytime we're too proud or too humble to be ourselves, nature helps us go back to it. And that's the lesson in life. And that's what marriage is for. People think marriage is designed to have support and happiness. That's delusional. Marriage is to help you become authentic and to take your disowned parts and make you own them, and then level the playing field a bit. And then you'll see people that are very, very high achieving have learned that when they go to awards like Academy Awards or great awards there in LA, and they do it, they're going down and looking at their spouse and looking at all their team. The people that are getting the super achievements are humble. They're looking at the people that helped them get there, and they realize that it's a team of a lot of people that makes them where they are. No one gets there by themselves. And those are the people that keep thriving and becoming, more achieving, because they learn to master the art of keeping themselves authentic where opportunity is maximized.
But so, like, if someone was listening to, I guess, those two stories where I guess, like, I felt I was already humble because, like, I wasn't showboating it around or telling people about it and that, like, how do you make a person understand that it's the same thing that's happened basically without having to showboat or,
If you can list the upsides and downsides equally, and they're simultaneously in your awareness, you're centered. If you can think of the upsides and you can't think of the downsides, or the downsides can't think of the upsides, you have what is called a sequential contrast, but not a simultaneous contrast. When that occurs, you have some sort of unconscious or conscious emotion sitting in there. And so that part, an emotion is an incomplete awareness. Feeling of love and appreciation is when you see it all. And so when you're having this emotion sitting there, the other side of the equation has to come in to balance the emotion. That's the lesson you get. So I have no interest. That's why when people come up to me and say, "Oh, Dr. Demartini, how did you become successful?" I said, "I don't consider myself successful." And they go, "Well, you've done this and that." I said, "That's not what I call successful. I call that a man on a mission. I'm a man on a mission, and I'm doing what I love doing. That's true. But successful is a sort of a pride. It's an assumption that you have a small vision and you've now achieved it, and little experience, and you're assuming that you're going to stay there. But I found that people that think they're successful usually depurpose themselves and do low priority things. And people that feel like they're failure go back and repurpose themselves and go back to high priority things. And I see that both of those personas and mass are feedback mechanisms to guide us into authenticity. If I just stay focused on authenticity, not compare myself to other people and put myself up or down, not look down on people or up at people, but just look at my mission and ask, how am I doing relative to my mission? How am I sticking to priorities? Am I delegating lower priority things? Am I saying no to distractions? Am I staying focused on what my mission is? Then I don't label myself success or failure. I don't even care about those terms, because the more you get addicted to success, the more you fear failure. Anything that's got a pleasure associated with it, you fear the loss of. Anything that's got a pain associated, you fear the gain of. When it's neither pain or pleasure, neither positive nor negative, you're now present. And that's where I prefer to go there. So I gave up happiness and success and, pride and everything. I don't find those productive. I find them distracting. I'm just a man on a mission doing what I love to do, and I prioritize my day every day. And I get the opportunity to do what I love doing every day. And that's something to be grateful for. And I keep the largest gratitude journal of anybody you've ever met. It's 9,000 pages, 10-point print, 1-inch margin, documents every single day of what I've done. I've already got yours typed in. This interview, I already typed it in before I got on. I had the opportunity to be interviewed and do this show today. So to me, that's part of my gratitude journal. But if I go and get cocky and I think, I'm thinking about this. If you go into a social setting and somebody says something nice about you and said, "Oh, Dr. Demartini, you're this, you've done this," or something, and they say really nice things about you. If you go in there and humble yourself, they'll keep lifting you up. If you go in there and arrogantly and say, "Well, it's about time you realize how amazing I am. I'm more successful and amazing than you can comprehend," right? And you get arrogant, they'll bring you down. Society will automatically bring you into authenticity. And if you don't get that lesson, you're going to be angry at people and you're going to think, well, they're stupid idiots and you're so bright and this. Foolish. Everybody's offering you feedback, but the feedback is not necessarily I need to believe what they said. I need to include what they said with the side that I'm the opposite side and put the two together. That's where the power is. Because you're going to have both supporters and challengers. If you look at the blogs, you're going to get support and challenge. I did an article in the Star newspaper in South Africa one time and got 900 responses the first day, 900 responses. And there were some that said, we don't agree with you. In fact, they threatened my life, in fact. And the other people said, we need you to run for president. I mean, I had extreme polarities on that blog coming back in on comments. When I added them up, my assistant and I added them up and find out how many were, they were nice and even. Support and challenge, positive and negative. If I looked at them completely, it just centered me. If I looked at one side and negated the other with a bias, I'd have puffed myself up or beat myself up. Don't puff yourself up. Don't beat yourself. If you're addicted to building yourself, it's going to hurt when you beat yourself up. Just center yourself. Embrace both sides of yourself. You're a hero and a villain. You're the saint and your sinner. You're a positive and negative. You're nice and mean and kind and cruel if you look honest at yourself. Both of them are needed with a license effect to get you back into authenticity. If you stay in the authentic state and keep within a certain zone of euthymia, as they call it, you maximize your potential on planet Earth. But the second you allow yourself to go to one extreme or the other, you become unstable. People think about you and all those distractions that keep you from your mission.
Fascinating. And I know, I'm just listening to one of your latest books. That's actually, if someone's got Spotify Premium, you can listen to it for free on there. The Riches Within, and I'm finding it fascinating, full of wisdom. Once again, there's a story in there that you talk about, which is pretty much what we're talking about right now. Is you're talking about in that book, Tiger Woods hired a psychologist to follow him around on the golf course while he was hitting on each the 18 holes, whatever he's doing, just to keep him balanced and neutral and not elated and not one-sided. Like, did you end up having the opportunity to work with Tiger on that, or did you just saw a story?
No,
Yeah.
no. What happened is Tiger came onto the ship where I live and visited, and we
Wow.
were in Edinburgh. They're having the great golf event there, the great Open, and the British Open. And so he invited us to come, and each of us that came got to walk one hole with him.
Wow.
And so I got to walk one of the holes, literally walk. I'm not right on the fairway with him, but just to the side so we could chat. Walked one hole with him, and it wasn't a psychologist; it was his caddy who was the psychology background. So it was his
Ah.
caddy, but had psychology understanding. So I heard what they were saying. I could hear it. I was close enough to hear it. And he shot one hole right down the fairway. I mean, perfect shot, about as good as it gets. And what he did, instead of being great shot, he said, one hole, one shot, 14 to go. And he calmed it down. Then Tiger went off the side of where the thing was and into some thicker grass. And then he said, this is where you shine. This is where you do some of your greatest challenging shots. You come back and blow everybody's minds. So he was taking the down and lifting it up and taking the up and calming it down and stabilizing it. Now, Tiger's a big, tall guy. He's a big guy. And so he's walking, he walks fast. And but when he's walking, he's present. It's interesting to watch his presence. And you don't see it. And now if he gets a great shot, like a hole in one, like he's gotten before, he goes, wow, bizarre. He embraces that. But you can see the stability of his, at least this is before the girl issues.
Yeah.
But this is 20 years ago. So before that, he was stable and focused. And then that's the key to a master. They're present. It's how present you are. Because as Warren Buffett says, until you can manage emotions, don't expect to manage money. And Robert Greene in his 48 Laws of Power, the biggest weakness that undermines great achievement and leadership is emotions. And most of the thing that destroys marriages are emotional outbursts and not knowing how to handle emotional responses and having delusions about how people are supposed to be. So, yeah, the executive center is what gives us our greatest achievements. Our emotions are what can undermine them. And so it's about learning how to self-govern. And people who are able to be self-governed go farther than people who can't. The people who can't usually end up in prison by other people.
Yeah. That would have been an amazing scene to see that unfold for you. Like, just to, see it's your life's work and see it in play again.
I get to see
playing
it.
out. Yeah, to actually
Oh,
see it.
I get to watch it. I'm watching it. I'm getting to watch it every day. I mean, I see it on media and things like that. You see somebody that's really cocky and then this tragedy occurs.
Mm.
You see this and look at all the heroes we've had, the Lance Armstrongs. The second they start to get above all the laws and the rules and I'm invincible, that's when tragedy hits. And if you look very carefully, you'll see this pattern. I saw this in Bruce Lee. I saw this in Michael Jackson. I saw this in Bill Cosby. All the people that were the heroes, I watched the cycle of it going into I'm invincible. I can get away with anything. I'm above all the rules and everything else. Eventually get humbled. And that's life. We see it right now with good old Donald. The more cocky he gets, the more challenges they throw at him to try to bring him back down into authenticity. Nature forces that in. Some people are slow in learning it. Some people, the amygdala wants pride and wants fantasy and wants to be a hero. But nature brings those down. That's why Emerson tried to say, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. Don't envy or imitate people. Honor who you are and be who you are. The old Delphic oracle said, be thyself, know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. Still true today.
Powerful. Nature's way. And I want to touch on, for the audience, Like you do talk, like on your book, The Riches Within, you said, you had a hard time when you started out building your wealth, on your journey to financial freedom and independence. Like you were talking about when in your practice, like you just forced yourself to save money, even though you felt like you didn't have money to save. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that story? Like up until that point, nothing was changing, nothing was working, it was still the same, but it wasn't until you forced yourself to save money. And when I mean save money, like literally set up a direct debit to one account to the other that you couldn't
Yeah.
control.
Well, I had a guy come in. I was in my practice. This is about not even a month in practice. And I'm not really that busy yet, but I got patients coming in, but there's not a lot yet. And a guy walks in who was a financial planner and saw a doctor's office. So he figured he'd probably pick up some business if he walked in here. And he asked my front secretary, his assistant, is the doctor in? So she came back and said, there's a gentleman here who's a financial planner, gave me his card and asked if I had a moment to speak. Well, I didn't have a patient at that moment, so I thought, what have I got to lose? I think I'll do it. Maybe I could turn him into a patient, right? So he comes back there, and he's a young guy, a couple of years older than me, 3 years maybe. And he says, do you ever have any desire or intention of being financially well off and being financially independent? And of course, at the time, I was a bit cocky, and I think, well, of course, yes, I do plan that. He said, do you mind if I ask you some questions to find out if that's true? And I thought, what? He said, because there's a series of questions that I can ask, and when people know the answers to these questions, I know they're going to be financially well off. If they don't know the answer to these, history's proven that they don't do well. And of course, now my ego's on the line, right? I've got to make sure I know these answers because my pride is. Now, the real truth was I lived with a fantasy of prosperity at the time, that somehow it was just going to happen. I was going to miraculously get there, somehow wealthy, I didn't have any strategy, didn't have any plan. So he asked me a simple question. The first question is what's my total net worth, total assets right now that I have? And I wasn't even knowledgeable enough to know what the hell an asset really was. And so I said, well, what do you mean by an asset? And he could see that I was stupid. And he just played very humble. And he said, well, things like stocks and real estate holdings and equity in homes and this and that. And he started listing them. And I started in my mind trying to run through and think about what my assets were. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And I said this. And he said, great. And he said, if you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going, he asked. And I actually knew more about my liabilities than I did about my assets. I knew what my debts were because I had some debts. So I wrote those off real quick. And he said, great. Number 3, so what is your total net worth? Asked my liabilities. Well, at the time, it was negative because I just borrowed a loan for equipment, started practice, just had a car, was paying that off, right? Had a rental thing that I was renting out to live in, and had a school loan. So I had a negative net worth at the time the guy walked in. And then he asked me the 4th question. How much money do you need passively, annually, coming in, passively off investments to be able to live life free as independent? And at the time, this is 1982, I thought, well, I don't know. I thought I was single at the time. I wasn't married. I'd just come out of school. I thought if I could have at least $100,000 a year, I think I could live on that. Now that would be worth around $600,000 today, but at the time, $100,000. And I thought that would, for myself, now that's if I had a wife and kids and house, that wouldn't be enough. But for me, that would be all I needed. So he said, okay, write that down. And then he said, how much interest can you earn off your knowledge of investing annually? And I go, I have no idea. I hadn't done any investing yet. I had a bank account with a little bit of money in it, but I wasn't even paying attention to what interest it was earning. And I said, what's a reasonable amount? He said, I don't know. With your knowledge, it depends on your knowledge. but let's say 8%. I said, okay, 8% sounds good. I didn't know anything. And he said, what's the inflation rate we're going to be facing? And I said, I don't know. I was completely zero knowledge about that. What exactly is the inflation rate? What's the annual inflation rate for the last 100 years? Around 3%. Okay, let's put 3% then. So that means I'm making 8%. I'm minusing 3% on inflation. I'm netting 5%. He says, well, now how much money do you require? Total net worth, earning 8% minus 3%, basically netting 5%. How much money do you totally need earning 5% to give you $100,000 a year? Well, I took 5%, divided into 100%, that's 20, multiplied the $100,000 times 20. I said, I need $2 million. He said, great. So you need $2 million today to be financially independent. I said, I guess I do. And he says, now what's what's the amount you have as debt right now? Did you have a negative net worth? What's the shortfall between your current net worth and that amount? And I went, oh God, 2,100,000, because I was 100,000 in debt. And I said, I need 2,100,000. He said, great. Now that we know exactly what you need to be financially independent today, what's your plan? How do you intend to be financially independent today? And I went, now I had a headache, a jaw was tight, cramps in the stomach. It was not a fun thing, very painful thing, because at that moment I had no idea how I was going to be financially independent, because I was barely able to save $200 a month at the time. That's all I was saving. And I thought, if I save $200 a month the rest of my life, I'd never be financially independent. So I thought, and I thought, well, okay, I need that today. So if I could do 1,050,000 today and 1,050,000 tomorrow, I could be financially independent by tomorrow. And I thought, do I have a strategy for that? No. If I do $525,000 for the next 4 days, do I have a strategy for that? No, that's after total gross income. That's set aside passively into an investment after taxes. I said, no, don't have that. I broke it down into 8 days, $250-something thousand. I went, nope. And I just kept stretching it out over longer periods of time and thinking, at what point can I think I can do that? And I broke it down over about a 15-year period, 18-year period. And I thought, I still need, at 180 months, I still need to save $20,000 a month to get my goal. And I thought, I don't see any way I'm going to get this. And man, I was having a throbbing headache. And I thought, this is the math. This is the truth here. How am I going to get financially independent? And I went and said, I need to relieve my bladder. I'm going to go there. And I sat on the can with a throbbing headache, a stomach in a knot, thinking really almost tears, because I lived in a fantasy I'm going to be financially independent. But I didn't see any possible way it was going to happen. And when I started looking at the actual facts of what it takes, I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't have a strategy. I didn't see even remotely how I could do it where I was at. And then I closed my eyes and just kind of got present, and something popped in my head that I was not expecting. And it was a forced accelerated savings technique and a forced accelerated investment technique. Fast and fate popped in my head. And what it was is, I can save $200 a month right now. If I was to do that every single month, in 3 months, after 90 days of doing it, making a habit out of it, I could increase that a bit. And so I decided to do that. And I saved $300 a month 3 months later, then $500 a month 3 months later, then $750 3 months later, then $1,000 a month 3 months later. And I ran a projection. When I hit 1,000, I ran a projection. If I saved $1,000 a month, where would I be? 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years. 34 years later, I'd be a millionaire at the rate I was going. But I didn't stop there. I made a commitment, and I automated my savings from that day on, that I'm going to increase my savings 10% every single quarter. And I'm going to go and focus and prioritize my business, delegate more things, extract surplus labor value, get more efficient and effective in business. And I went to 1100, 1100. I ran a projection. It was 28 years, no, 31 years I would be a millionaire. Then I went to 1,200 3 months later, ran a projection, 28 years I'd be a millionaire. Then I made it 1,344, ran a projection, and it was about 16 years, 15 and a half years, millionaire. Then I went to 1,575 or whatever, ran a projection. I'm down to 14 years. I'm going to be now just under 14 years, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I kept increasing it. And then all of a sudden, one of my loans came due, and I finished off paying a loan. I immediately took that difference. Instead of raising my lifestyle, I immediately put that into my savings. And then I was increased my savings, and I ran another projection. I'm 11 years away from a millionaire, my first million. And I just kept increasing at 10% now with that new amount, because now I'm adding $230 every quarter to the amount I'm saving. And all of a sudden, I'm now saving 4 and 5, and then I'm saving 10. Every 2 years, it kept doubling. Then another loan was finished. I added it in. I didn't raise my lifestyle, and I paid my taxes. 9 years after I started, independent, 37 years old. Just about 37, just right before 37, I became financially independent. But I didn't stop, because by then I was saving $32,000 a month. I just kept doubling it, 32,000. Now I just kept doing that until I got to 64,000, 128,000, $256,000 a month. And every time I increased it, new opportunities and ideas and royalty systems and all secondary ways of making income and business opportunities just kept expanding, because I was valuing me and managing money wisely. When you do, the people value you and more opportunities come to make more income. Now I'm 50 times financially independent.
Wow.
50 times what I originally set out. The amount I make now is more than I'll spend ever. So the reality is I just kept methodically increasing the amount, and I didn't raise my lifestyle unless I raised my savings and taxes equal amounts. That I put that rule on there. So now I've got an amazing lifestyle, but at the same time, I didn't just jump in there and get immediate gratifying lifestyles. I kept frugal, making sure my money was compounding and working for me, so I earned the right to have the lifestyle I want. So I have a crescendo lifestyle as I get older instead of a decrescendoing, which most people are trapped in. So the forced accelerated savings and forced accelerated automated investment technique. And I started buying simply companies and stocks in companies, and just buying quality companies that served ever greater numbers of people, and select only those things that actually serve people, not speculations and fantasies. I didn't need to gamble. Just buy high quality companies that make a difference in people's lives and fill people's needs. If you help other people get what they want, you get what you want to get in life.
Amazing.
So my life financially changed because I accelerated it and I automated it. I took the emotions out, put the strategies in, focused on serving people and focused on what my skill is, got to my core competence, stayed authentic, delegated lower priority things to people that would love to do the things I want to delegate, and liberated myself from the distractions that keep people from building wealth.
Fascinating. And so, like, do you feel like, because like I've played it out in my life where like would set up the multiple accounts, an account to pay myself, really break it down for whatever, account for car, account for house, whatever, taxes, business, future holiday, whatever, an account for unforeseen circumstances. What I found, like within the business, like whether it was just a small amount, whether it was just literally a sale would come in and it was like $5 a day dispersing into all those sub accounts, and I'd do it for 3 months and 6 months, and then like what I found was organically we'd have a lot more sales in the business, and when the unforeseen circumstance popped up, I'd get deflated because I felt like I had to touch all the accounts to pay the unforeseen circumstance and start again from zero. And it'd take me like 4 or 5 weeks before I'd get back into the system. And what I noticed, our sales dropped organically through those periods. And then when we went back into it, organically sales went up. So like,
Yep.
is this like what, like, can you explain quickly, like Is this the
Yes.
universe saying you're valuing money, so we're going to give you more money? The energy, the exchange.
Anytime you bring order to any of the areas of life, disorder goes down. If you looked at all the unexpected bills that you have and total it up and stick that amount into an automated investments at the beginning of the month, the unexpected bills will go down, the entropy will go down, the order will go up. But if you wait and you don't put the money aside and invest in something that goes up in value, it will automatically undermine erosion. That's the same thing. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it fills up priority distractions that don't. If you don't surround yourself with people that are inspiring, that have meaning and purpose in life, you end up with entropic individuals that distract and opportunists and bring you down. So nature is giving you feedback with frustrations to get you back to authenticity and to go after something that empowers your life. So I automated the savings. There's no emotion about it. It's gone out every single week since 1982, every week. And instead of rescuing myself, I go and become accountable to find new business and generate new business and look at what I'm doing so it refines and polishes and grows the business. If I rescue myself, I'll beat myself up and I'll end up getting the feedback. That doesn't work. Stop doing that. Don't rescue. Go be accountable and care about your customer and go meet their needs. Because probably you got cocky. The business went down to humble you. You now rescued you. Now you're going down further, beating yourself up. Doesn't work. It's trying to tell you, don't get cocky. Be grateful for the opportunity. Keep caring about your customer. Meet your customer's needs. Keep current with it because it's changing. Keep innovating. Focus on what it is that you feel is your mission in life instead of immediate gratification, and automate the electronic savings and investments and watch what happens.
Awesome stuff. John, any last words to the audience?
Yeah, thank you for letting me be with you today.
And
your questions are bringing something to people's lives, and so thank you for that. But just know, whoever you are out there, the magnificence of who you actually are is far greater than any fantasies you may make of yourself by comparing yourself to other people. So don't beat yourself up or build yourself up by reflecting of other people. Go look inside yourself and ask, what is really the highest priority action step you can do today that can help make a difference in the world? And how do I maximize my efficiency and effectiveness at delivering that with the resources that you know you have access today, and get the fulfillment of making a difference in the world? And when you do, your appreciation of yourself will be maximized, and the results will speak for themselves. And then invest in yourself. Make sure you put money aside and value yourself, because when you do, so will the world.
Amazing. Again, John, it's been an honor to have you on the show. Your wisdom, it's something that, like I said, I always enjoy seeing whenever you've got a new book, or whenever I see you on a podcast of some format. I always learn something, and I always really cherish those moments. So again, thanks for your time, John, and thanks for being on the show again.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you again.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Unlocked from Within. If you loved today's episode, could you please do us a favor and like and comment on what insights you learned from the episode? And please comment who you would love to be interviewed in the future. Your comments really do make a difference in us being able to grow the show further and get future guests. If you think this episode could really help someone, please share the episode with that person. To learn more about Dr. John Demartini and get access to a treasure trove of tools and tips, visit www.drdemartini.com. You could also check him out. He's available on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and has his own podcast available on Spotify and Apple. I'll have links in the show notes for all of those. If you'd love to purchase his latest book, The Riches Within, you can get it on Amazon or listen for free on Spotify Premium. Again, I'll have links in the show notes for that. Dr. John Demartini's also been kind enough to share some free gifts and tools. And if you're interested in that, there'll be links in the show notes also for that. If you're interested in removing a subconscious blockage or a limiting belief and would like a session with me, please reach out to me at martyclay.com. It's available one-on-one or in-person sessions or over Zoom. And if you're interested in my next workshops or corporate events, please go to my website, martyclay.com. Again, thanks for listening.